So I thought, it's really good, and I think it covers what we're trying to do. It's well-rounded. As far as community members and staff members, the only thing that I would like to suggest that we add, there might be two things, but the first is we have a lot of groups such as music, and I know we talked about last time that we don't want to say, okay, music gets a position, because then we might be alienating, I think you had mentioned that, Larry, we might be alienating other groups by saying we're only having a music group, and then we have other groups saying, wait, we're not being represented. But I think because we do have so many groups in our district that are larger, like music, we might be well served to have 2 task force members so that we can have 2 groups represented. I think we only have 1 on there, unless I read that incorrectly.
Representing which?
Representing the special programs.
Oh, special, okay, got it.
And so under staff, we have, we did have a list with either the elementary music coordinator or an elementary music representative. That could be teacher or elementary or secondary music teacher, I would suppose. Our intent or our hope is that individuals who might apply for the task force will check multiple boxes as you know. So a parent could have a child in the EAP program or the AAP program who also participated in the elementary band and orchestra program, so it would bring multiple perspectives to the table. I'm not opposed to adding an elementary representative, or adding it as a preference down below, as we've added some other preferences for specific skill sets or experiences. I just want to be conscious of how large the task force becomes and how manageable that becomes.
So when it says 21, if people come from different, let's say we have an elementary parent, EAP, and a special program, and I mean, does that count as one person, or will we have 21 people on there? Or will we blend some of those?
Yeah, some of it's going to depend on who actually ends up applying, but I think our hope would be that 21 is a bit large for a task force. If we could have individuals that check multiple boxes, so we could pare that size down a little bit, that would, in my mind, be preferable. But we're opening up the possibility that these might be 21 discrete positions.
How many people are currently on the EDTF?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know there's 12 appointed members, 6 board and 6 superintendent, and then with staff, there's probably 16, 17 total, and then all of the ex officio or the ad hoc members that are around the group.
I'd like
I wasn't
to
doing the math
request.
very quick. Was that, it sounded like that was over 25?
I'm sorry, there's probably 16 or 17 official members of the EDTF, and then there are on this proposal, there are a number of ex officio or ad hoc representatives who drift in and out of the process as their expertise is needed.
You mentioned staff. Is staff part of the 16 member?
There's some staff, I think.
Transportation.
Transportation, liaison,
Yeah. Principals,
Ryan.
teachers.
Those, the principals and the teachers generally fall under the positions that I appoint, under those 6 positions.
Do we have, okay, so that would be my preference, that we look for somebody, you know, that, and that's just my preference. As, remind me if we have kind of an at-large community member that's not a parent and is not a staff person.
On the EDTF?
No, on this task force.
Non-parent community member
Okay,
slash
I thought I saw it there, I just wanted to double check, I couldn't find it right at the
It's
moment.
the very last, it's on the 2nd page. It's the
It's
very last.
after
And then-
teachers.
I thought that David Bain brought up a good point about having possibly another leg of this would be someone that is familiar with transportation that's outside our school district, since that's really the driving force of this is transportation and cost. And maybe you have it on there and I missed it again. We've changed so many,
Well,
talked about this so many times.
we have a couple of representatives from transportation, so we have a transportation department representative.
Outside of the school district.
No, somebody from within the school district who would understand our systems and,
Right, but I'm wondering if it might not be wise
Yeah,
to
bus
also have somebody, not maybe as a separate person, but that has, because this is such a huge, like we're asking for someone that has financial experience, you know, that we might have somebody that has that transportation experience, even if they're one of these same people, that might be one of the criteria we're looking for, because it is such a huge thing for us and it's probably the number one driving force, and that is intertwined with cost.
And what would be the add-on? What would be the added value to someone outside of someone in transportation outside? I mean, we provide all of our own transportation for students. So.
Yeah, not someone providing transportation, but somebody that might be able to give voice to different ways that we can do transportation, that's seeing it outside of our system, that might have, not that they're going to change everything, but they might be able to value add to, maybe they know they work in some transportation setting, or like what David was saying, they're with, you know, work with, I can't remember the name of the organization, but yeah, you know, where they understand that we need new sidewalks or this or that so we can get kids walking, and they might have different ways that we can get, you know, dollars that are there, grants.
I think that's a pretty valuable suggestion, to have someone from outside transportation kind of background, that perhaps a public transportation kind of background even. If we could add that to one of the already existing people, not to make it grow any larger, but I think it would be a really great suggestion.
I know that
Director D'Angelo.
PALS has been pretty deeply enmeshed in the transportation issue as well, and looking at that. So perhaps the person that is representative of PALS also has that transportation experience too. But am I hearing?
Well, just to understand, so what you were saying, Dawn, about not adding an extra person to the task force, is the suggestion perhaps one of those, another, preferably at least one parent, any level with transportation experience? Is that what you have in mind, Kimberly?
Some parents that work for public transportation.
Yeah.
It would be, I think, really great to have there.
Or the community member,
Right.
or,
Yeah,
I just think,
about the community member, somewhere within that, if that was something that we were hopeful to have, I think that would be useful.
I think I like the preferably phrasing, because you never know who is going to apply, and that way if someone doesn't, then we don't have this hole that we feel like we have to fill. If we're not adding to the size.
I think sometimes it helps to have eyes that aren't, people need to know our system, but it's also helpful to have eyes from other areas that don't maybe know our whole system, and they see things different than maybe how we had seen them. Just like Virginia had the Children's National Medical Center help them with the report. We're kind of doing this just in a different way.
So I'm seeing consensus that we would add preferably someone with transportation. Background in transportation.
It would, the elementary general ed parent, there's 3 spots there, or is that just one? No, that's
That
three
really is
Those are the preferences.
that really is a sub item to all of the parents there. I mean, it's probably not displayed in the best way, but those are of all of the parents who are applying, preferably somewhere within that collection of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 parents. One of those 7 would also check one of those
Have
preferable
those.
boxes as well. And so if we added a transportation expert, that would be a sort of 4th ask under that parent.
And that could be the community member, could be,
It could be a community.
the community member
Yep.
could have the finance
Sure.
or the transportation also.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion?
I have a question. This mentions finding a facilitator for the task force, and I just, being on the board a limited time, I wasn't familiar if the district has done that before, or what kind of facilitator you had in mind. Was it,
Trying to think in recent history, in my time in the district, I can't recall a time when we brought in an outside facilitator and staff here to help me. But the thinking is that with the grade reconfiguration task forces, with the boundary work, we're pretty tapped out right now. And so we've actually had a meeting with an individual who we believe would be a good facilitator, who's actually interested. We've sort of sat down and explained kind of the history of this issue in our district and its current status, and they didn't run screaming from the room, so we were kind of happy about that. So, and it's somebody who works with our leadership program within the district, so they're pretty familiar. They have some baseline familiarity with us right now, and they're a known commodity with at least the folks who are participating in the leadership program.
And one more thing I'd like to add is just that we're keeping in mind diversity of the board. So I don't know how diverse the EDTF is, but I'm bringing this up because of the concern about the Hispanic voice. And I know we have the natural leader, so that's awesome. But just that we're keeping that in, you probably already have it there.
So usually with all of our task forces, we try to make sure that we at least have geographic diversity within them, because we recognize that, particularly with this issue, I would suspect that because there are so many transportation overlays on it, and transportation is very different in different parts of the district based on just geography and density. So we would definitely be looking for geographic diversity, but I also hear your concern about making sure we've got appropriate representation demographically as well.
Any other questions or board members ready to vote? So the only modification was adding the preference for a transportation background. We've already had a motion and a second, so I will call for the vote. Task force will be established. And thank you, Larry, for the work that you did on hearing our conversation and drawing up a document that was effective with that.
Well, I'd just like to acknowledge, so I did the initial draft, but I want to acknowledge the expanded cabinet. Did quite a bit of work on this after the winter break, so I acknowledge those folks as well.
Well, thank you all very much. All right, next item on the agenda is the 2015-16 intermediate steps to implement board resolution number 714. Because this doesn't have a nice little yes or no opportunity as it's presented, I think we'll start with some discussion, and then I'll entertain a motion to advance it to the voting stage. Does that make sense?
And we'll vote on each. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know,
Advance forward. I see.
Yeah, that is one option. If board members prefer to vote on each one, that would be fine. I think there are some that, as we've discussed, I'm hearing that there are probably one or two that could be eliminated, and so I'm willing to do it either way, whatever way you want to do it.
I prefer your first choice. I think that if board members
Have a discussion and
advance
then, yeah.
one forward
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
vote on that, then we don't just sit here and vote multiple times.
Yeah, that's. All right, so I'll just open it up for discussion. Recognizing that we have been discussing this for many meetings, I'm hoping we can be fairly succinct and draw this to a conclusion tonight.
Oh, okay, I'll start. One of my concerns has been listening to all of the music testimony. And I did see on a Facebook post that someone said that the district was informing people that music was going to be cut. And so I believe I'm correct. I believe I am, that none of the options included cutting music.
Well, I would say that your suggestion of flipping junior high and high school start times would have a direct impact on the before school music program.
When I saw the thing at our last meeting, I think it said no change to music program on every one of these. Was I wrong?
And since the students go to school, with the junior high, they go to the junior high school?
I hear what you're saying, but I think
Yeah.
it said no change on all of the options.
On the,
So Ryan, would you maybe clarify how the elementary music program is envisioned potentially with the flip model?
Actually, we haven't even discussed that. So that was the one thing that, in the memo that we wrote, that we would have to continue to work with the staff to figure out how to make some of those changes. So the
Specifically
flip-
talking about the flipped model of middle school, high
Specifically
school.
talking about flip.
You know,
Yeah.
could part of the misunderstanding come from, on the memo, the March 3rd memo, Ryan, it says